Our next spark is by Paul Hummer, and it is titled The Trenches, Solve All the Isms. An interesting thing about Paul is he learned the hard way that fireworks should be used outdoors. So if you talk to him in the lobby afterwards, get that story from him, because I haven't yet, and I'll be wanting to hear it from him. So Paul is a giant man-child. He spends his days composing video game music, riding a skateboard, and vacationing in Neverland. Welcome, Paul.
So I've given a couple of Ignite talks, and I find that the best Ignite talks are stories. So I don't want you to pay as much attention to my slides as the story that I'd like to tell. And it starts with once upon a time. When I was a sophomore in high school, I weighed 98 pounds. I was 4 foot 11 inches. So as you can imagine, I was not the high school quarterback. In fact, I was not very athletic. However, my life in high school and middle school changed dramatically when I learned to catch a football and learned to shoot hoops. So athleticism was something that was just a necessity for me. Along with that, until my early 20s or so, everything I knew about women I learned from really bad 90s teen movies and pornography. So I'm not an expert on any of these things, and so I just want to tell you a story about my experiences. For about 2 years, I have been coaching a women's roller derby team. I have 18 ladies, and we just moved up about 25 spots, but there are a few things in my life that have changed the trajectory of the way I look at the world than these things. So when I started coaching, I stopped swearing. I stopped, as much as I can, being a know-it-all. And if I was going to ask them to, that slide's kind of messed up, to eat right and exercise, I was going to learn to do those things as well. Now, this sounds like a really bad Disney movie. A lot of the assumptions that I made about people were wrong. And as I worked with these players, these women, I learned that I had to throw out the book about things that I have always known coaches to do. For instance, one time, very early on, I was watching our players do push-ups, and I exclaimed rather rudely, "How did you get through middle school without ever learning to do a proper push-up?" Yep. So this is my ignorance, and this is the story that I want to tell. Mercifully, my players explained to me that there's this idea that women are less strong than men, so they just do them the best you can. Or even worse, gym teachers who, once they hear PMS or period, figuratively and sometimes literally put their fingers in their ears. Now, coaching 18 women, I learned that there is no such thing as TMI. In order for me to be helpful, I have to have full disclosure. If you are a heterosexual male, by the way, and you can't deal with menstrual cycles, get in the sea. So a pivotal point for me was at an after party at a bout. Sports Center was on. I was sitting next to some of my players who were having beers, and they were doing highlights. And they did this highlight of a WNBA thing. And I don't even remember the details of it, but one of the ESPN personalities decided he would make a joke about women athletes. And I was incensed, I was embarrassed, I was pissed. But my ladies shook it off, and one of them mentioned lean in. And I thought, great, yeah, lean in, recommit, but maybe we should ask this ESPN presenter to lean out a little bit. Because truthfully, I have these players who kick the crap out of everyone that I know. So here's the hook. I got in with a group of people that are very different than me. And by learning how they live and learning how they grew up, my outlook on life changed. I learned, most importantly, that in order sometimes to see to their needs and help them to be more comfortable, the only thing that it cost was my own ego. That sometimes if we just let those things go, things get better for everyone. And also that this is the very definition of being a grown-up. Sometimes, just because I got through grade school or middle school to knowing how to do a push-up doesn't mean everybody has. We can talk about sexism and we can talk about racism, and we can take a women's studies class, and we can take HR's diversity sensitivity training. But ultimately, all of these things are academic. And when it comes down to it, we're only talking about people. So, I have learned myself to listen to people, and when I learn about their experiences, change myself and my own outlook on life. I realize this is a heavy topic. Please find somebody in the audience who's different than you today and make friends with them. Here's a picture of a cat.